that moment. You say something you think is absolutely hilarious, and everyone just stares at you like you just announced a funeral. That silence, that horrible, cold, echoing silence. That's not just awkward. That's a generational humor crash. And trust me, it happens to literally everyone, every single day in every country on Earth. And here's what nobody talks about. It's not that you're unfunny. It's that humor has generations. It has rules. And when those rules clash, oh buddy, things get weird fast. Stay with me, because by the end of this video you're going to understand exactly why your grandpa doesn't laugh at your memes, why your teenage cousin finds your jokes cringe, and what you can actually do about it, without losing your mind or your family relationships. Let me paint you a picture. It's Thanksgiving. The whole family is sitting around the table. Uncle Dave, 62 years old, a man who grew up watching Johnny Carson. He leans back and goes, "Why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything." And he cackles. He thinks he's absolutely killing it. Meanwhile, his 19-year-old nephew, Tyler, is sitting there just staring at his mashed potatoes. They personally offended him. Tyler then pulls out his phone and types something in the group chat, and it just says, "No cap that was giving boomer energy, llama ooh." Uncle Dave sees it, has absolutely no idea what it means, gets slightly offended. Thanksgiving is now complicated. That right there? That's a generational humor clash. And it's not just funny. It's actually a really deep human phenomenon. So let's break this down. What even is generational humor? Because I think a lot of people assume humor is universal. Something is either funny or it isn't, right? Wrong. So wrong. Humor is actually deeply cultural and deeply temporal. Meaning, what makes you laugh is shaped by when you grew up, what was happening in the world, how you consumed entertainment, and who you were around. It's like a fingerprint. Every generation has its own comedic fingerprint. Think about it this way. The silent generation, people born in the 1920s and 30s, their humor was shaped by radio shows, vaudeville, and surviving the Great Depression. So a lot of their comedy is dry, self-deprecating, built around endurance. We had nothing and we laughed anyway. That's the vibe. Baby boomers. They grew up with television becoming a thing. Sitcoms, catchphrases, slapstick. Their humor is more performative. It's meant to be told, like a story with a setup and a punchline. But Generation X, these are the whatever people. Dark humor, sarcasm. Irony so thick you could slice it. They grew up in a world that kept disappointing them, so they made fun of disappointment. That's their love language. Millennials? Oh, millennials took irony and anxiety and turned it into an art form. Self-deprecating humor about being broke. Therapy, avocado toast, and crying in the shower. I can't afford a house, but at least I have my iced coffee. That's a whole personality. Gen Z? They broke the internet with absurdism. Humor that doesn't have a traditional punchline. Memes that make no sense to anyone over 30. Why is the cat on the ceiling? I don't know. That's the joke. The confusion is the joke. Surreal. Chaotic. Beautiful in its own unhinged way. And now Gen Alpha, the kids who are 10 to 14 right now, they're doing something that genuinely terrifies older generations. They're referencing YouTube shorts, Roblox lore, and inside jokes from Discord servers that have 40 members. It's hyper-specific. And if you're not in the circle, you are completely lost. Now here's where it gets really interesting. And I promise, this is where your family drama starts making sense. When humor clashes across generations, it doesn't just fall flat. It can actually offend people. And this is something researchers call a politeness violation. Now I know politeness violation sounds like something your HR department would say, but bear with me here. In social psychology, there's this concept called face. Not your literal face, but your social face. Your dignity, your sense of being respected in a group. Every person in every culture is constantly managing their face, making sure they feel valued and that they're not being mocked or dismissed. When humor lands wrong across generations, it often violates someone's face. It accidentally sends the message, "You don't get it. You're out of the loop. You're old. You're irrelevant. You're too sensitive. You're trying too hard." And nobody likes feeling that way. Here's a real example. And I mean, this one is painfully relatable. My friend, let's call her Sarah, she's 28. She works in a marketing company where half the team is in their 50s and half is fresh out of college. One day in a team meeting, someone mentions a really stressful project deadline, and Sarah, completely naturally, goes, "It's fine, we'll just gaslight ourselves into thinking it's fine." She's using the word gaslight the way her generation uses it, as a slightly ironic, self-aware joke about coping mechanisms. She expected a laugh, maybe a knowing nod. Instead, dead silence from the older half of the room. One of the senior managers, a lovely man named Gerald, visibly flinches, because to him, gaslighting is a serious term related to psychological abuse. It's not a punchline. It never was. Hearing it used casually in a joke felt jarring, uncomfortable, like someone made a dark trauma joke at the wrong time. Sarah meant absolutely no harm. Gerald felt quietly bothered. Nobody said anything. And for the next 2 weeks, there was this weird tension in the office that nobody could explain. That's a politeness violation. A humor fail that didn't just fall flat. It created friction. And this happens in the other direction too. Don't think it's only young people stepping on older people's toes. Have you ever had an older relative make a joke that used a term or stereotype that made you cringe so hard you felt it in your spine? They're laughing. They think it's fine. They think it's just telling it like it is. But you're sitting there going, that's not okay. That's just not okay. And then here's the thing. What do you do in that moment? Do you call it out? Do you laugh awkwardly and die inside? Do you change the subject? Do you give them a lecture on why that word is problematic? This is where repair tactics come in. And this is honestly the most useful thing in this entire video, so pay attention. When humor fails, when it offends, confuses, or creates that horrible silence, there are ways to fix it. Researchers in communication studies call these conversational repair strategies, but I'm just going to call them ways to save your relationship without making it worse. Repair tactic. Number 1, the graceful redirect. This is when you, or the person who made the joke, smoothly moves the conversation in a different direction without making a big deal about the fail. No lecture, no awkward explanation, just a gentle pivot. Anyway, back to what we were saying. It's subtle. It's kind. It lets everyone save face. Think of it like when you accidentally walk into the wrong bathroom, make eye contact with someone, and both of you just pretend it didn't happen as you back out slowly. That's grace. Repair tactic. Number 2, the light translation. This is particularly useful across generations. Instead of letting a joke die or letting confusion fester, someone, ideally a person who bridges both worlds, gently explains what was meant without making either party feel dumb. Imagine Uncle Dave does his Adam joke, and instead of Tyler just rolling his eyes, Tyler's mom goes, "Oh, come on, Ty, it's a classic." Dad, Tyler's just at that age where everything has to be a meme, and everyone laughs. The tension dissolves. Connection is made. That translator role, incredibly valuable in families, workplaces, and friendships. If you're the person who can bridge generations with humor, you are gold. Repair tactic. Number 3, the honest laugh at yourself. This one takes courage. If your joke flopped, especially if it accidentally offended someone, the best move is often to just own it. Not grovel, not over-apologize, just a warm, genuine, "That landed wrong, didn't it? I clearly misjudged the room," and then laugh at yourself. There is something so incredibly disarming about a person who can laugh at their own failure. It immediately lowers everyone's defenses. It signals that you're not fragile. And it gives the other person permission to laugh too. At the situation, not at you maliciously. It's like tripping in public. If you trip and get embarrassed and run away, it's cringe. If you trip and take a little bow, everyone loves you forever. Repair tactic. Number 4, the curious question. This one is underrated and honestly beautiful. When someone says something you don't understand, especially a younger person with slang you don't know, instead of dismissing it or pretending you understood, ask, genuinely, "Wait, what does that mean? I actually want to know." People, especially younger people, are so much more open when they feel like their humor is being respected, even if it isn't being understood. Curiosity is a form of honor. It says your world matters to me, even if I don't live in it. Grandma Googling, "What is Riz?" is not embarrassing. Grandma Googling, "What is Riz?" is grandma saying, "I want to be part of your world." And honestly, that's kind of everything. Now let me talk about something that I think is the root cause of most generational humor clashes, and it's something almost nobody discusses. It's not age. It's not even culture. It's assumed shared context. Every joke at its core assumes that the person you're talking to shares a reference point with you. When you make a joke, you're essentially saying, "We both know this thing, right? So when I twist it, it's funny." If the other person doesn't know that thing, the joke doesn't just fall flat. It creates a feeling of exclusion, and here's where it gets emotionally complicated. Feeling excluded from humor is one of the loneliest feelings there is. Think about being the only person in a group who doesn't get the inside joke. Everyone laughs, and you're just sitting there, smiling and nodding, internally going, I have no idea what's happening, and I feel invisible. That feeling, multiplied across years of family dinners and workplace interactions, can create real distance between generations. Real disconnect. Real, I just don't get them and they don't get me energy. And that's genuinely sad, because most of the time both parties actually want to connect. They just don't know how. Which brings me to something I find genuinely fascinating, the concept of humor bridging. Some people are just naturally good at making everyone laugh, regardless of generation. These people. They're the ones at family gatherings who somehow have the grandparents and the teenagers both cracking up at the same time. How do they do that? I'll tell you. They do it by doing something very deliberate. They find humor in the universal things. Not in references or slang or trends, in situations, in the shared absurdity of being human. Traffic, bad Wi-Fi, waiting in line, waking up at 3 a.m. for absolutely no reason. The way your phone autocorrects something innocent into something extremely not innocent. The moment you forget why you walked into a room. These things are funny to everyone regardless of when they were born, because they're not about pop culture, they're about being alive. The best cross-generational communicators, the best humor bridges, they lean into universal situations, and then slowly they build from there. They earn the trust of each audience, and then they can get more specific, more personal, more layered. It's like a musician doing a warm-up before a concert. You start where people already are, then you take them somewhere new. I want to talk about one more thing before we wrap up, and this one is specifically for the younger folks watching. There's a temptation, especially when older people's humor feels outdated or offensive, to just dismiss them, to roll your eyes and write them off as out-of-touch boomers or whatever. And look, I get it. Some of those jokes are genuinely not okay and shouldn't be laughed at. But here's the thing. Completely shutting down is also a missed opportunity. Because behind almost every bad or outdated joke from an older generation is a story. A context, a world they lived in that shaped their sense of humor in ways that made total sense at the time, even if it doesn't anymore. Your grandparents aren't offensive because they're bad people. They're offensive because the world they grew up in had different standards. And humor was one of the ways they survived it. That doesn't make the joke okay, but it does make them understandable. And understanding is the first step to actually having a real conversation instead of just two generations talking past each other forever. You can hold both things at once. That joke didn't land with me, and I still love this person, and I can explain why it missed without burning the whole dinner down. That's maturity. That's communication. That's genuinely impressive. And for the older folks, because I know you're watching too, hi, welcome, I appreciate you. The equivalent is this. When younger people's humor confuses you, resist the urge to dismiss it as nonsense or disrespectful. A lot of Gen Z humor that looks chaotic and random is actually really smart. It's deconstructing traditional comedy. It's playing with format. It's humor that's been to therapy. When your grandkid shows you a meme that just says, me at 3 a.m., and cackles uncontrollably, don't walk away confused. Ask. Lean in. Let them explain why that's funny. You might not end up finding it funny, but you'll find them funny, and that's better. So here's the big wrap-up. Here's what we actually learned today. Humor is generational. It's shaped by when you grew up, what you survived, and what made you feel included or excluded. When it clashes across generations, it creates something called a politeness violation. Not necessarily because anyone is trying to offend, but because they're operating from totally different assumed contexts. These clashes can create real tension, real loneliness, and real distance if we let them. But they don't have to. With the right repair tactics, the graceful redirect, the light translation, the honest laugh at yourself, and the curious question, you can turn an awkward humor fail into an actual moment of connection. The funniest people in any room aren't always the ones with the best jokes. They're the ones who know their audience, who can adapt, who can bridge worlds, and who aren't afraid to laugh at themselves when things go sideways. Humor at its best is not about being superior. It's not about having the most references or the cleverest punchline. It's about saying, I see you. I'm in this weird, confusing, occasionally hilarious experience called life with you, and that's funny to me. Uncle Dave and Tyler might never find the same things funny, but if they can laugh together at the fact that they don't, that's everything. That's family. And hey, if this video made you think, made you laugh, or made you think of someone specific in your life who you need to call right now, that's exactly why I make this stuff. If you want more videos about human communication, social psychology, and why people are like this, in the most loving way possible, hit that subscribe button right now. I mean it. Click it. It's right there. Your future self will thank you because we dive deep into the real stuff, the stuff that actually helps you understand people better. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's the funniest cross-generational humor fail you've ever witnessed? Family dinner, work meeting, first date? I want to know everything. Let's laugh about it together. And if you know someone, a friend, a sibling, a coworker, a parent, who desperately needs to see this video before the next family gathering, share it. You might literally be saving someone's Thanksgiving. Subscribe, share, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves and each other. Peace.